Sorry to be pushy about getting started again. We're just running, we've got about an hour and 20 minutes left. And we haven't even touched on graphics yet. So we've got a little bit of work to do. So there are two different kinds of graphics that we see commonly anymore. And I'm hoping, oh, hey. Look, my runtime came in.
Yeah.
So we've accumulated 15% of our limit. We were supposed to go off at 10%. And it came in as a message over down here under the timer right next to alarms. So, okay. If we click on it, it takes us right to our runtime. Okay. That was an unexpected win. And of course, I'm going to have to log back in there. That's fine. So, when we start talking about graphics, from an operator's standpoint, this is about, well, depending on your operator, don't throw books at me, it's about 90% of where the rubber meets the road as far as the building control system goes. Most operators live and die by the graphics for the control system. You will run into some operators who hate the graphics, don't believe them in the first place, so don't use them at all. You will run into an occasional building operator who used to be a controls technician who doesn't like the graphics because they don't give them enough information or the information they want, and so they dig into the back end to get the information they want. Okay? But the vast majority of the time, the graphics are their touch point. Okay? So creating usable graphics for a building operator it's an art form because it's designing a user interface. It is doing graphics. It is creating images for these people to work off of. And, you know, sometimes the people who are doing that work, our building controls technicians, have never even thought about that kind of thing. Okay? So trying to build a user interface that somebody's going to use that's going to give them enough information but still be readable can be challenging. Okay? In modern control systems, there are two different categories of graphics that are common terminology now. We have what we would typically consider graphics, and these I'm going to pull up from our college's system. So this is the air handler that is supplying the room we are in right now. Okay? This is a very traditional style of graphic for air handlers. Every company's particular look, as far as manufacturers and even as far as the implementation by a company or even people within a company. Everybody has their own particular flair, their own background colors they like, their own library of graphics that they like. Some are flashier than others. Common features that we have is we're given information. We're given literal data. Our supply air temperature into this space is 49 degrees wet bulb, 55 degrees dry bulb. Okay? With a set point of 55, so we're doing good. We also commonly have some animations associated with graphics anymore. We have fans that spin, pumps that spin. We have coils that will glow brighter colors as the valve gets further open, dimmer colors as it closes, or completely flat when they're inactive. We may have dampers that are showing a relative position versus what they should be. So we're at minimum outside air right now, maintaining 450 parts per million outside air CO2, sorry, not maintaining, reading, with about 16,000 CFM of outside air. One of those kind of things where, maybe somebody should be looking at this saying, do we need 16,000 CFM of outside air for a building that besides us has like 6 people in it right now? Anyway, so, but we can see that our dampers are looking like they're just partially open. Okay? That's very common. Depending on the level of detail, sometimes these are static, sometimes they're dynamic graphics. Okay? But this is the type of graphics that we've been looking at for air handlers for a good 15, 20 years. The animated GIFs portion, the spinning fans, was something that kind of added on a bit later on. Static images with updating labels were our first venture into a graphical interface. Okay? More or less. Each company has its own specific timeline of when it adopted things and everything, and let's face it, nobody really cares. Right? So, but this is kind of what we look at or think of when we think a graphic. So the questions associated with building a graphic. You have to section out graphics into usable chunks. Okay? So a graphic that has the entire air handling system from the air handler to all of the VAVs, trying to put that on a single graphic would make that graphic unusable for multiple reasons. Okay? So we chop it into chunks, bite-sized chunks, just like we teach our lesson plans. Okay? We've got an air handler. This is a definitive piece of equipment. When we're talking about air handlers, we need to know what information is useful to know about an air handler. Okay? That's going to be partially dictated by the sequence of operations for that air handler. If we don't have a supply temperature reset, then well, no, that's not a good example. What is a good example? If we don't have an outside airflow monitoring station, then we don't need an outside airflow monitoring station. Those set points are useless to us. Okay? If we didn't have a return fan section up here, we could just chop that whole section of the graphic off. Okay? And have something that looked more like a T coming in. Those are common things. So you have to think about what equipment you have and how it's operating. If we have a VFD on our supply fan, but the supply fan always runs at a fixed percentage, is there any point in putting the speed of the fan on the graphics? Not if it's designed to run as a constant volume unit. Probably not. Okay? So those are the kind of things we have to think about. What data is going to be useful to the operator? Okay? You can talk to the operators, hopefully, and find out what data they want to see. Be honest, that's fairly uncommon for new buildings. Retrofits in existing buildings, updates, remodels, much more likely. Okay? And when in doubt in those situations, if you still can't talk to the operator, match the old, or try and match what was there. With new buildings, oftentimes it's dictated by the engineer what they want to see on the graphics because they think that that's what the operators need to see, and in combination with what the building controls technician has done in the past that has worked. Okay? You have to think about how you're going to organize the data. You notice here we've got some discrete boxes showing up. So all of our supply fan data is grouped together in this box so we know it's all associated. Okay? That does a couple of things for us. It saves us label room. Instead of having to say supply fan status, supply fan command, supply fan speed, we grouped it all together, put the supply fan at the top, and assume we're going to know that it's supply fan. Right? Looking at the graphic, it's pretty logical to see. But when you're building this graphic from scratch, or more specifically, when we're having a student who's never seen a graphic like this, or only seen it up on our screens like this, when we're asking them to do that, it may not be that logical of a thing. Okay? Making sure that when we display measurements, that they're coming with a unit. That's a minor detail, but an important one. From a visual aspect, when we stand back and look at this, is there anything that jumps out and catches our eye that makes us go, that just doesn't look good? Kind of. You know, that's kind of the artistic side, making sure that all of your labels line up. And there are tools in most graphical design systems to help you do that. Didn't used to be. Used to be one of those things where you came in about this far from your screen going, I think that's lined up. Or taking a piece of paper or ruler to your screen saying, oh yeah, that is. And bumping it around with keys. That's how I had to learn it. Okay? So, those are the kind of things we have to think of anytime we're building any graphic. Make sense so far? Okay. And just to show you, VAVs are not necessarily any better. So this is a floor plan. This is a 2D floor plan. A lot of companies are starting to do 3D floor plans, kind of putting them at a, what is it, an isometric view, and doing it from there. Do what your customer wants. If your customer doesn't want anything, do your company standard. Okay? Floor plans generally are kind of a pain to deal with. There's a decent amount of data here, and each one of these green boxes, or this red box here, those all had to be drawn individually, okay, to match on top of the floor plan. But they're showing us this is a great example of a really good floor plan graphic, because I can look at this graphic in 2 seconds and say, yep, life is good, because everything's in the green. Down here we've got a legend telling us everything is, or most things are optimal. We've got a couple of warm spots. We don't have any cold spots. Pretty good sign. Okay?
Question.
Absolutely.
We don't
Okay.
have much time.
No, go.
Your building is LEED Gold,
Yes.
and I know it's like a certification when you open it up, right?
Yep.
So that begs me to ask, are these cooling set points what was originally designed?
That is a valid question that I do not know the answer to. My guess would be probably not.
My building is the same way. It was designed to be super efficient, and then when it came to running it, I don't know if it was so many planes.
Yeah.
Set point.
Yeah. It is possible that the reality of the design for this building was a little bit different than what got put on paper, because the engineering group that did the design, all the mechanical design for all 3 of the new buildings that we built and the central plant, has worked with the college on a lot of projects. So they may have been slipped a piece of paper that says, really design for a 70-degree set point in the summer, and write down that you designed for a 74-degree set point in the summer. I don't think that's actually the case, because I have a big beef with this, how this building was designed. There's too much diversity in the system on the air handler side. Our air handlers run at 100% supply fan in the middle of the winter because they just don't put out enough air. And if you can't put out enough air in the middle of the winter, you did something wrong. Personal beef, don't worry about it. But let's look at the VAV box. Sorry, I got to remember what room we're in. This is the VAV for the room we are in. Notice it tells us where we are. Construction classroom 114. That's us. Yes. So this is one of those examples of you build the graphic once and you figure out how your system needs you to copy it, so you don't have to build 50 graphics that are all the same. Even our air handlers for this building. We've got two different types of air handlers, so we have two different base graphics, and one of them was designed, the other was just copied over from the first design. Okay? But VAVs, like we've said in the past, a VAV is an exceptionally complex unit, so we end up with a lot of data on the graphics. Now, this is an example of a type of graphic that historically was one of the things we did for years and years in buildings. Before we started doing floor plan graphics, we had these big long lists, and usually not very long lists. We had dozens of pages of them, of the data for our zones. Okay? It was just pure data, set up kind of spreadsheet or matrix type format, and that's all it was. So some operators have been looking at screens like this for 30, 40, yeah, sure, maybe 40 years, 30 years for sure. Okay? Before we could do floor plan graphics and make them look good, this is what we did. Some people still like this type of graphic. This type of graphic could be categorized as a dashboard, which is our second major category of graphic. It is a quick view into a system looking for problems. I'm not saying this is a good example of what a dashboard really looks like, but it is an example. Okay. What is probably more common for a dashboard would be something like this. This is the dashboard for this building. Over here on the right-hand side, and I'm just pointing here first because this is where I'm close to, we have our information on all four of our air handlers. Supply air temperatures, return air temperatures, how much air or water they're using, chilled water, I believe, and our percentage of our resets for cooling. Okay. Down here at the bottom, we've got our alarm console, just like we've got in the BAS view, thank you. Except it's built into a graphic. Okay? Oh yeah, that's just the chilled water info, sorry. So these are our valve percentages for those air handlers. Here's the data on the air handlers themselves. Discharge air temp, supply fan, and return fan statuses. Simple. Okay? Air handlers 3 and 4 are big single zone units. So instead of the fan statuses, they've got discharge air temperature and space temperature and setting. Just a quick glance. Hey, how's my building look? Nothing jumps out at me as terrible. Away we go. Okay?
Well, other 824, why is it 66 degrees?
HU4 serves the welding labs. So I would hazard a guess that somebody got warm during finals.
Can you put color in one of those boxes so if it exceeds a parameter, it might turn shade?
With this control system, yes. Will the BAS view do that? I don't know. Okay, but yes, doing color gradients is a very common thing for most control systems. Because again, it just adds a depth of information and helps with that quick look. Yep, we're good, we're gone. An example of that is this one right here, this kind of purpley one. That tells me that set point is overridden. So there's probably a slider on the wall in that space that has been overridden because of some issue or other. Better answer to your question. I think Air Handler 4 is actually the capstone lab and our central storage area. And if we don't keep it cold in there, it gets sticky humid. Okay, Air Handler 3 is the welding lab. Okay? But this is another example of a dashboard. Okay? Neither of these graphics that I've pointed out and called a dashboard are what, well, this is a Niagara system. Niagara would actually call a dashboard, because they've started creating specific graphical widgets and, gauges, line charts, and things like that, and created a specific format that just kind of looks fancy as much as anything else, and called it dashboards. Okay? We've been doing them for years. They're just catching up with the idea, and it's something that we've done. Again, IT, we've had dashboards monitoring networking systems, server systems for literally decades. We use dashboards a lot for energy monitoring. We like to display them in our lobbies, saying, hey, look how good our building is doing. Okay? Making sense? Questions so far? Okay. Let's jump in to the BAS view. Okay. And I think, in essence of time, would you be okay with just watching me do for a little bit? Lanny's like, no. Okay, Lanny, you do too. Okay.
I'm just saying what everybody's thinking. I mean,
Because I'm going to try and go kind of quick on this. And so that we can have some free time so you can play with whatever you want to play with afterwards. And I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to tell you I'm not going to show you the dashboarding. Okay? The dashboarding on these is actually really easy. And again, if you go to Contemporary Control's website and go to the page on the BAS view, which is under Supervisors, they've got a BAS view introduction video here that's about 20 minutes. And about 15 minutes of that focuses on doing dashboards. And he does a really good job. I don't remember who did the video, but does a really good job of showing just what your options are, how to customize it. Way better job than I could do in the time we've got. Okay? So, when you want to learn about the dashboards the BAS view can do, go watch the video. Okay? But that video talks very, very little to not about graphics. So, as I'm sure you can guess, very nice, very nice. Creating graphics,
where's Larry?
we're gonna,
The only graphic we need.
honestly, it's a better picture than I was afraid was going to show up.
You ever wanted Bob's bucket?
I've got one of those floating around somewhere on this computer. But, as I'm sure you can imagine, getting to the graphics, creating a new graphic is exactly what you'd expect. We're going to come down here, right-click on our tree, and go to New Graphic. We'll call our graphic, I'm going to call it AHU, because despite what this might now be called, oh, we're still, Larry was here, okay. We are in an air handler. I'm going to click on the graphic, of course, comes up with nothing because we haven't done anything with it yet. To get to edit mode on this one, you have to right-click. This is one thing where the user interface could benefit with a little bit of consistency, whether we get to it this way or hit an edit box up at the top. I'm saying that for Joe's benefit, but okay. Edit mode, here we are. Blank canvas. Okay? But if we look up at the top, our plus sign is back. When we need to add something new, we can either drag it from our tree and, no, we have to hit the plus sign first. And we've got a variety of things that we can add. We can add charts, gauges. These are mostly focused for kind of the dashboard side, but you can use them in a regular graphic too. Okay? They are capable of that. Again, really showing that a dashboard is just kind of a fancy setup for a graphic.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
It is. It's a lot more grid-based with the setup. There's not as much worrying about having to line things up and things like that too.
If you're putting your own image in, you're trying to do an external.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's on your animation.
Yeah. And we're going to deal with that. Okay? So, but let's focus. I'm going to scroll down here to an image. Okay? There's only one default for image, and this, calling it a default image, sure. It's basically just a blank spot where we can stick an image later. Hey, look, there's my image. Looks, useless right now, right? I'm going to right click on it and edit gadget on or normal image. I can hit the plus sign. Which is Larry.
Well, they were taking a while, so we had before his dad to do it and right after.
There we go. All right. So they have a preloaded rooftop unit background. I don't like this background, but it's the only thing we've got, right? How do we solve that? So, loading additional stuff, there are two ways you can do it. There's the way through this interface, and there's the background way that you've got to use additional tools. We're going to do it through the interface, which isn't the most intuitive thing, and you've got to add it like one image at a time. But it works. So, here while I'm in this window, remember that comment about if you can't figure out how to do something, right-click in a random spot? That's how I found this. Okay? I can upload a file. And it's going to open up a new tab for me, and I can go choose a file. Okay? Now, one of the things about the BAS view is it comes with very, very limited graphics. The stuff that is loaded is more focused towards just a real quick demo type thing or towards dashboards. So there's not a lot there. So you actually have to go and get your own graphics. Okay? I'm going to help you with that. Don't worry. But there are definitely options out there. There are a number of companies that have created HVAC graphics libraries. Some of them, it's a one-time purchase. Some of them, it's a subscription fee. Some of them, Mr. McNabb's best friends down there at Computrol will give you a free graphics library. You just have to go to their site to get it. And
I just got it, Robert. It wasn't.
yeah, it's not hard. It's fill out a form with like your name, company, stuff like that. They'll send it to you for free. It's for use with the BAS view, it isn't super useful because most of the images are formatted for Visio. So if you have a graphics package that uses Visio, it's much more useful. Okay. But I'm going to jump into my BASX images here, and I've got this folder named Graphics. Notice I've got a link to the free HVAC graphics library from Computrol's there for you. I will be sending this folder out to everybody. And I also have this random lowercase library named HVAC that might have come out of a different software that they also give away for free. So I'm going to go into my ducts because that's what I want to start with. And I want a nice H duct. Kind of like the one we saw on the screen. I've selected it. I upload it. Upload successful. I jump back to my tab. cancel out or refresh. And now I can choose duct B. Okay? Because this is going to act as my background image, I'm not going to do anything else with it. Just hit OK. And there we go. Wait a minute. That's not my H duct. Our view is too small. Resize. Now we've got something to work with. Okay? Now, I have run into some issues as I was playing with this where you will have an image that you're trying to move around, and this blue box is where it is, but the image is staying in one place. So you'll move the box around up to the right-hand corner, and it'll stay down here in the left-hand corner. And you'll move it over here, and it's still staying down here. If that happens, save your work, log out, log back in. It's just some sort of refresh error type thing. It's just having trouble drawing what you're doing. Okay? Doing graphics editing like this is actually a pretty intensive process for a web browser type situation, so, you know, it's not surprising. Okay? So we've got that background. Notice down here at the bottom, I've got this at thing going on. It's trying to reference a point, but I don't have a point connected. So I'm going to come back in, edit my gadget, and I'm going to scroll down. And hey, look, I've got a caption. Hey, at L equals at V. Okay? These are both trying to reference our point. L is our label, so the name of the point. V, we're used to already, is our value. Okay? It's defaulted to whatever's connected. We don't have anything connected here. So I'm going to just put in a label. Okay? I can change my font size. Let's go up a bit. Notice we can see it resizing as I go. 34 will work. Also notice, did you see the ductwork shifting around as I went up in font size? Somebody who builds graphics for this for a living might have nightmares. Just saying. Okay? I can also change where my position is. Maybe I want it at the top. Notice how the ductwork jumped a bunch. Okay? Apply. Okay. So now I've got my graphic there. No problem. Nice and easy. I'm going to save because I'm paranoid. Cool. Let's get one of those animated GIFs on here. Let's do something more fun with this. I'm going to add. This time I'm looking for something with animation, so I'm going to grab animation. And again, it's just going to show up as a blank thing. Right-click to edit the gadget. I'm going to go get an animation. They have a fan built in here. It is designed specifically to match that rooftop unit graphic. Okay? So it's not going to work for us, so we got to upload another image. Right-click, upload a file. You can see how this could get irritating as you're trying to build something, especially if you wanted to build a non-standard air handler or something like that. Choose file. Still in my HVAC, I've got some equipment in here, like fans. We'll go with a right fan. Okay. Okay, there's my right fan true. Okay. Now, this is an important thing while we're doing animations that wasn't important for the image that we chose. Okay?
Yeah.
Right now, the animation to display, okay, do we want a different off animation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You would think the answer is yes. In the case of a fan or a pump or something, we actually don't. What we do is instead we're going to scroll down to animation control, and we can choose, do we want the animation to play while we're on? Do we want the animation to play while we're off? Those type of things. Do we want to set analog limits? Okay. Apply. Oh, we should probably deal with that caption. Or let's see what it does without the caption. Okay. So, there's our fan. I'm going to get it down into my ductwork, kind of where I want it. I got it kind of close, probably about as close as I'm going to get it with the mouse. I'm going to use my arrows to bump it around. Okay, get it lined up. This is something that doing graphics for hours on end will give you a headache, especially if you're trying to get little stuff lined up. Just have the bottle of ibuprofen ready. Trust me. No, the whiskey does not work because as time passes, things fight you even more to get lined up. Okay? So, right now, I've got a fan. Is that fan telling me anything useful?
Nope. Not just saying.
We got a garbage label going on. What was that, Jenny? I don't have a point linked to it. I could go in through the edit menu and get a point if I wanted to, but there's an easier way to do it. I'm going to grab a point from my tree and drop it on to the graphic. I'm going to save, and I'm going to go look at my graphic. Okay, obviously I grabbed my awk point because I knew that it was on. That's why I grabbed it. And it's telling me the label name, awk, and its current value of cats. And we notice my fan is blowing. Okay? If I come over here, hit my awk, change it over to dogs, apply, this is my off value. We can see I'm still awk, now we're dogs, and the fan animation stops. Okay? Pretty simple, right? Pretty straightforward. What if I want a label? What if I want something like my supply fan speed? Back into edit mode. I'm going to add, and this, you know, we can scroll down, we can find a label down here. And you probably want a default label. The full point info literally gives you every piece of data about a point. So most of the time that is not terribly helpful. Okay. And let's find my supply fan speed. Nope, that's return fan. Come on. Nope. Drag it onto my label. I'm going to move my label down into the vicinity over here. Okay? Shrink it down so it matches in size to the other one. I'm going to save. I'm going to see how it looks. So, I see two pieces of information. Didn't that label, wasn't it showing 3 @ symbols? @L, @V, @U, I think. Shouldn't I be getting 3 pieces of data? Yeah, see? @L, @V, @U. What do you think @U is? Units. This is a great way to discover, oops, we forgot to set units on an object. So we would go back and we would edit our object to include the units, and we're good. I'm not going to go through that. You get the idea. Okay? Oh, what else did I want to show with this? You can see how this gets tiresome. Damper position? Sure. Oops. We'll use our plus. I think this is a multi-state selector. No, it is not. Notice, easy to delete things. Yes, it's an animation, or it's going to be today. So, edit gadget. We're going to go find an animation file. Of course, I'm going to have to add one because I don't have one. Well, let's go with a closed. We'll go with an open there.
Robert or Joe, are there any, like, again, pre-assembled graphics, right? I mean, you know, right, air handler's pretty standard, right? So just
Oh, yeah.
pull it in, and then you tweak a few things.
So, yes, there are. There are companies that will gladly build you that graphic. There are companies that automatically have or already have generic graphics built. That is one of two ways the industry currently is doing graphics. So, in that situation, you have one background image file, and you bring in your animated GIFs and get it lined up exactly on top of things like fans and pumps. Add whatever labels you want, and away you go. Or you bring images in one piece at a time. So when I was uploading images, you may have noticed while we were in ductwork that we have about every piece of ductwork you could think of to build a custom air handler. So we could have just one straight line air handler that we made out of different pieces of straight duct. You can have Ys for your dual duct air handlers. You can have 3 ones for, I don't know, maybe a heat recovery with bypass dual duct monstrosity. So you can build what you need. And traditionally, that was how we did most of our graphics, was you built what you needed. A lot more recently, we're starting to go with pre-canned graphics or farming it out to a graphics company. Plan.
Out of Sacramento, there's a company called BAS Custom Graphics.
Mm-hmm.
.com, and they actually work with education to do pricing. Because I got their standard graphics library, which they usually charge $750 for. And if I remember correctly, I bought it a few years back. It was like $300. And I asked them, you know, where can I use it? How many stations? And so on. Let's use it.
BASgraphics.com. So, again, libraries of stuff. I'll be perfectly honest, and this might not be the really correct answer to say. How many people have a control system in your labs right now that has graphics capability? Show of hands. EasyIO, Niagara, Siemens. Most of these systems operate on basic images and animated GIFs anymore. That's what you need for this. So maybe all you need to do is go dig into your background folders on your existing software and find where they're hiding those files. You already paid for them once. Not like you're making money off this anyway. So again, like I said, that may not be the entirely correct answer. But supporting these companies that do make these graphics, I think, will be useful. The companies that make the graphics, graphics they make are so much flashier, so much more visually interesting and visually detailed than anything, almost anything, that HVAC control companies are going to ever provide you, that it might be worth it just to get your students' attention with it. That I don't know. I don't know your budget. Okay? So, something to keep.
Once you build that air handler, you can save the entire graphics as a file, right?
Yes, you can, and I think it's about time we talked about that. So, one issue that I should mention, in the idea of adding a damper here, I chose an animation file to do this with. That won't work unless the graphic that I'm going to add on is a GIF. It needs to be a GIF. It will not accept JPEGs or PNGs or anything like that as an image file because it's expecting something that it's animated. Okay? I might be able to do it with an image or a stack of images. That can be really annoying to build. But it is something we used to have to do. Okay? I'm going to save this. I have to figure out the right way to do this, because what I'm going to do is going to apply, as Brad said, we can build this graphic once and save it before we start dumping a bunch of data into it, and we can reuse it. But, as you may recall, when we did our discovery process, we found multiple air handlers, didn't we? We have 6 air handlers back there. They're all functionally identical. Why not use the same graphics for them? Take it one step further. Why not use the same alarms for them? Why not use the same trends for them? Why not take all of that configuration time that we've spent in this unit here? Remember, programmer. Use your time efficiently. So what we need to do, I'm going to go back one level. So I've got Larry was here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to edit this device, or no, come down here to Save as Template. Okay? We'll do a description. This is actually an AHU, Bob. Stop it. Save. Template has been saved. Okay? I'm going to come in here. I'm going to scan for new devices. I am just going to scan network 1. Starting device, I think we're in the 70s, so we'll limit that. So I'm going to let this scan, and hopefully the only thing we're going to catch is going to be the air handlers back there.
I hope you do by anything.
Son of a... Fine. We'll scan the whole thing. And this is where it's going to tell me I can't find anything. Hey, 8's enough. I see another air handler. Because you don't want to sit here and watch this spin any more than I do. Okay? So I've got this air handler 3 here. I'm going to add this air handler 3. Was that how I wanted to do that? Yeah. So I've got air handler 3 here. Nope, go back. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to edit the device. And I'm going to scroll down. Cancel. Sorry. I did it the wrong way. I have to delete it. Okay. Air handler 3 is .72. Okay? So instead of scanning for a device, I'm going to manually add a device, which is something we can do, but we haven't done yet. So this is literally manually adding that air handler. I'm just going to create a new device, label AHU3, address 192.168.10.72. I said scroll down. Device ID is 72. Not going to worry about the advanced BACnet settings, but we see this button down here that's template. I'm going to click on it. Sure, I want to cancel all those changes. We'll grab Larry was here as a template, say OK. There we go. Now it's applied that entire template, I hope, to the controller. I'm going to change my address and device ID to match my new controller. I wasn't expecting it to overwrite everything. There we go. So I've got Larry was here and Larry was here. Which one is the second one? That's the first one. Here's the second one. And look at that. Everything that we did before duplicated right down. Reusability. And I will tell you, every control system I have ever, all but one control system that I've ever worked with, had the capability of something like this. It had the ability that once you built something, you could apply it to multiple devices. Okay? It is not always the same. This is the first time I had one that told me it was going to save it as a template. Whatever, I don't care how to do it. Just knowing how is the important. Or that.
So after the commissioning agent comes in and finds 5 things wrong with your image, how do you got to go back and do it, repeat it back to all, they're all the thing.
It happens.
I know it happens.
Yep. Depending on your system, some of them make it easier to do that, some of them make it harder. Here with how the contemporary controls graphics go, I think if it was something where I only had 2 or 3 of a thing, I'd probably go in and manually edit it myself. If I had 50 VAV boxes that I had to make that same change on all of them, as much as it kind of hurts, sometimes you just wipe the slate and do it. Or if it's one specific thing in the VAV boxes, like, you know, just program 1, you save that individually as a template, go in, blow out program 1 in each of your 50, and copy it in as a new template. Is it ideal? No, you should have done it right the first way, first time. So, but you're right, it definitely does happen. Some systems, again, make it easier, some systems less so.
So if you add a template, it doesn't change any of the comments.
Correct. Because, at least not with contemporary controls, because you're applying that template at the time of creation. Be very, very careful when you're using this on other systems, because I have done things that I really, really regretted by editing things that I shouldn't have, or in a way that I shouldn't. In a Niagara system, for example, all of those, we've got 60 or so VAV boxes in this building. They're all linked back to one graphic file. So if you do something like add radiant heat to a room, and you add it onto that graphic file, suddenly you've got radiant heat in all the rooms, whether it exists or not. Been there, done that. Okay. In one of my great favorites was copying a graphic in Andover controls. And in Andover, you had to copy the graphic and then go break the link to the old background file, or you would, whatever change you made to the new graphic applied to the old graphic. I did that on a floor plan that I snagged for a very small project, a whole 3 VAV boxes. So I went from an emergency room graphic that had about 30 box VAV zones to an MRI room that they literally built onto the side of the building that seriously had 3 zones. And I wiped out the whole old graphic except for 3 of the labels, and I drew my MRI room, and I hit save, and I was just so happy. And then I went back to the emergency room graphic. I was nauseous because of it. Because in that system, I literally had to go back in Microsoft Paint and draw my frickin' floor plan again from scratch. Nauseous. Brett.
If you were to complete that air handler,
Mhm.
can you save that as a file someplace else outside of the software so that you can utilize it at a later date on another project?
Jim. You give it a Jim.
My guess would be yes. Exactly how?
See if I can play with it then. I'll let you
I know we can back systems up, and I know we can restore systems, which is something that I really should show you here in a second. And as I was telling you, if you need to get a lot of graphics into this, you can use what's called FTP, or File Transfer Protocol, to talk to this. And basically, it's something akin to like File Explorer, so you can just go dump a bunch of files in one go. If you wanted to do like this entire graphics library, that would definitely be how I would do it, versus trying to do it one piece at a time as you need it and losing more hair. Some of us don't have spares. So, and I get the feeling that when you save that file, you might be able to go in and dig it out of the file structure to be able to reuse and dump into another system. If you're willing to do that level of background work, is the question. Other questions, comments on graphics?
Once you get your steps in line.
It does snap pretty close. If you look really close, it doesn't quite get there, and it hurts. But that's life. And it's literally something that I think is like 1 pixel off on one end or the other, that you just can't get it to line up. I swear somebody did that to torture somebody else. Okay? All right. I do want to show you how to do backups real quick. It's super easy. And restoring as well. We're going to go into our settings down here, bottom left, server functions, right here at the top. Database backup. Click on it. It's going to pause everything. Yep. We made it.
Restart after the student's murder.
Yep. That's the idea behind the restore. So, we can see we downloaded a backup file of Larry Was Here.
Important file.
It was. Okay? And now we can remove the file so that we're not clogging up our memory. Okay. And I do believe, because of how this is doing the backup, that when you take a backup, you're getting all of your trend data as well. Okay? Which reminds me, we need to go look at a trend here in a second too. But this restore, database restore, you can choose a file to upload. So at the end of the quarter, all your students have done their backups. They've got it to take home with them to look at it in 2 years and say, what the hell is that file, and delete it. Once they're done and gone, just upload a blank database. Okay? Among the files that I'll be sending out here next week includes a blank database. Okay? So it doesn't, well, I can't say it doesn't matter how horribly they screw it up, because inevitably you're going to have a student who's going to figure out how to screw it up so bad that there's no coming back from it. But that would be pretty challenging. Not impossible, just challenging. So, but at the end of the quarter, you come in with your magic paperclip or, cell phone tool, reset to your default IP address and login credentials, log in real quick, restore a blank database file, and away you go. Okay? I will caution you about one thing with the blank database file. Because of how you have to create a blank database file initially, there will be a username and password set on the controller. So the first thing, when your new students show up, maybe you do this before they walk in the door, you're going to have to do the little reset trick again to get it back to the factory default password. Okay? Or if you want to start them off with an existing account, with your, hello CC1 or whatever password you want to give them, when you log in on a brand new unit, just automatically grab that database. And then you'll have your own custom blank database. All right. I wanted to look at that trend because, well, I'm the one standing up here controlling the computer. There it is. Hey, look, my critical temps have gained some data. So we can look at it as a graphic. And remember, you can print the graphic, save it as a JPEG or PNG, or we can jump over here and look at it. I pissed that trend off somehow. In a database or a spreadsheet type form. I think, the way this looks, can we do it? Nope. I was wondering if we could just highlight it and copy and paste it out and do a database. All right. Questions?
Export as an Excel file.
Yeah, it does. I just don't remember how to do it.
Right-clicking doesn't work, it says. The standard package.
Export data. So you've got it. You've got to be in the graphic view, and then right-click on the chart, and you've got your options for. This was how we set up our initial points and stuff. So again, if you're not sure where to go, start right-clicking on things. You'll get there eventually. So, other questions? Anything we've covered? Anything we haven't covered? All right. food is almost ready. So let's go ahead and take a bit of a break. When you come back, Ted.
One thing. So I set up that share folder in Google for everybody yesterday. Before you go right now, if everybody could check to make sure they can get on it and upload a file, or just test it out. If I have used a non-Gmail account for you, you won't be able to load a file up there. And so I'll need to know your Gmail account that I can load up to. So then just email me your Gmail account. Robert, put my email up there for everybody.
You got it.
$21 and, oh, sorry.
WAL?
Eyes, all eyes.
So the report out presentations folder is where we put our.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. There's I put up there is a report out presentation folder. There's also one I started for lesson plans. If you want to share lesson plans, put up in that folder. And we started that one file yesterday for ideas. That's up there in the ideas, most, you call them most useful with trends.
Yeah.
And there's just a couple other files up there right now. Russ, you put your PowerPoint in the wrong place.
Oh, got it.
You put it in the report out presentation area.
What's that? Well, it's not. I moved it.
All right.
So that's it. So email me if you can't get in. And check that right now to make sure, because then I can change it now rather than having to keep looking at my emails on my phone.
So where do you want us to put our
In the report out presentation folder.
okay. Well, I see, so, yeah.
So, you have anything?
Yeah, I need to clarify something. So in the college description section, there's first location of your college, which is straightforward. Service area of your college, well, that's a nominal concept. You know, there's a political/geographic concept that you are serving this area. Like Lanny, his college is embedded in a certain geographic location. There are other districts all around him. Theoretically, his service area is his district. But, and then community demographics. But then when you get down to student demographics in your own program, he might be bringing students all the way from Santa Monica. He might be seeing students from Long Beach. Because these programs are unique. There are very few, there may not be another program in the LA region doing what his program is doing. Just like with Charlie, he's out in the middle of nowhere in Walla Walla. He's pulling students in from the Tri-Valley area.
Well, we get some people for Tennessee and other places for wind technologies. Yeah.
Yeah, from Pendleton in another state. Rob, he's out in the middle of nowhere. He might be pulling students from New Orleans. So it's important for you to note that because it's just a kind of an artifact of the kinds of programs you're running. And it changes how you schedule, for example, how you work with students. It has some impact on how you operate your program. That's what we're trying to get at. Some sense about who you're serving and what your total geographic range is. That makes sense. Brad, his program is, well, there's another program in Stockton. It's Stockton is how far away from you?
Probably about 40 minutes.
Yeah, but you're serving not just your nominal district area, but a much larger geographic area.
Yeah, and I don't believe the Stockton program, there's actually a couple other for-profit programs in the Sacramento area also.
Yeah,
And there's quite a few people actually going through that, and we're fighting with our people on advertising, because when you do an HVAC search, we don't even pop up.
yeah.
We lose a lot of people to those 9-month schools.
Well, Wyotech shut down.
Yeah, but there's still like two other for-profits in the Sacramento area.
I mean, what we found is students would go through those programs and then come to us
Yep.
and say, can you teach us something?
Well, we get the company that I work for get a lot of people from that, from the for-profits in the Sacramento area. And they'll work with me occasionally, and we'll get talking, and they realize, and then they actually end up, enrolling in class.
Yeah.
All right. Last call for questions?
Yeah,
All right.
It's not the best.
Thank you, Robert.
My part of the show is finally over.